Hello and welcome. This is part one of a two-part video series on the spine. So for this part, we're going to focus especially on assessment and developing some specific priorities for you and teach you how you can improve those priorities. So part two is going to be more of just a follow-along spine training session. You won't have to think as much about it, you just go through it. Here, this is more for reference, so I would highly recommend that you film this and you wear form-fitting or minimal clothing so that you can really see what's going on at your body. All right, and then all I've got is a thin strap. You can use a rope, a band, a strap, anything like that. And it's not an absolute necessity though. And then I've got a PVC pipe. You can use a dowel rod, broomstick, anything similar to this. All right, so we're gonna get started, and all you need to do is get into a cat-cow position, quadruped position. And we're gonna focus on not focusing to start, okay? So elbows stay straight, hands are under your shoulders, knees are under your hips. That's all you need to worry about now. And now, easy, just bring the spine up as much as you can. Don't even worry about how you're doing it. And then droop down as much as you can, okay? There we go. I just want you to do that a couple times. No pain here. Go as far as you can, no pain, and without thinking too much about it. So I want to do a few different assessments here. So you're going to assess and see how you move without a ton of conscious effort and without a ton of tension. And then we'll progress from there. Okay, so we've got that. Now we're going to focus on leading from the low back. So we're going to spread into flexion from the low back all the way to the upper back and neck. So elbows staying straight. I want you to focus on pressing the shoulder blades away. So I don't want them pinched down, I want them pressed away, protracted, and keep them away so they're not moving at all. Now, we're drooped down. You're gonna start rounding by tucking the hips and try to round all the way up to the upper back. And then you can even tuck your neck if you want to, but you don't have to involve the neck. Now from here, keep your rounding in the upper and droop down through the low back. Little by little, like a wave, you're spreading towards your upper back. Take your time with it. I want it to take maybe 8 to 10 seconds or so, but don't kill yourself with this. I don't want you holding your breath or creating a lot of tension. We're gonna go one more time each way. So tuck low back, let it round and work its way to the upper back. Good, and then droop down through the low back, spread towards the upper back. All right, very nice. Take a moment. We're gonna just reverse this now, and I just wanna prepare you that this is gonna be a little bit more challenging. I want you focusing on easy to moderate effort here though. So don't do anything too crazy, don't hold your breath. There will be time for working a little harder, that's not right now. Right now we're just assessing. Okay, and don't worry if you can't feel exactly what's going on. That will come in time, okay? So, we're going to start droop down again. I'm going to have you lead with your chin and your upper back. So shoulder blades again, don't move. They're pressed away. Tuck the chin, round the upper back. Let that flexion, let that rounding spread to the low back as much as you can. All right, and now keep the rounding in the low back as best you can and try to droop down through the neck and the upper back. So you're just taking your time. Remember, you're not working too hard here. You're just letting it spread as much like a wave as you can, pressing the shoulder blades away and down. Then we're going to go one more time. So tuck the chin, round through the upper back, let it spread slowly to the lower back. Good, and then we're drooping down through the upper back, slowly working towards the low back. You're breathing, you're not creating too much tension in your body. Okay, so that is more of the segmental cat-cow, and that's where we can see where you do and don't move as well. So what I want you to look at when you are looking at the video that I hope you took, look at your initial ones where we're not really focusing too much, just going up and down, and see if there's any what we call hinge points. So are there a couple points in your spine, and there usually are for most people, where you move a lot? And then are there places where you move kind of in chunks? So there's a tendency for certain areas of the spine to move more and certain to move less. Our goal is to get them to move as fluidly as possible, so we get a little bit of movement at each segment. So what you'll notice most likely is that there are certain segments where you do move in the chunks, and then other segments that move maybe a lot, okay? And you hopefully will find that when we're doing the focused segmental work, that it was at least a little bit more fluid. The tendency is for the low back, when we go up into flexion, into the C shape, that the low back doesn't flex as much. It doesn't round quite as much. And then as we go into extension, drooping down, that the upper back, the thoracic spine, doesn't droop as much. So that may be something you want to focus on. All right, so what I'm going to have you do now is we're going to assess your rotation and lateral flexion. Now the key with the spine is that the flexion and extension that we were just working on, that is going to create space to do all the other movements at the spine, like the rotation and then the lateral flexion. So that is what you want to address first. That is going to be your top priority, and we'll go over how to improve that. But first, I want to assess rotation and lateral flexion. So if you've got your bar of some kind, what I'm going to have you do is get it under your armpits like this, okay? And use your arms to kind of pin it to your chest, okay? It's fine if your shoulders are forward. I actually kind of like that, all right, so they don't move. So you're pinning this to your chest. You can cross your hands, and you're just keeping all these points of contact. So arms are on top, the bar is stuck to your chest. From here, we're going to assess your rotation, okay? So you don't have to kneel down like this if this isn't super comfortable. You can come up into tall kneeling. You can also sit. So if you sit on a chair or whatever it may be, that's perfectly fine. I just want you to focus on trying to keep the hips and the belly button pretty still, okay? So what we're going to do, keeping all this still, you're going to rotate to your left, pulling the bar as far as you can, okay, and then return. All right, and now we're going to rotate slowly to the right. Think about pulling away from your belly button. What's nice about the bar is that it's stuck to the chest. It keeps everything moving together, so you can really look at the angle of the bar as well and get a sense of how far you're able to move. Okay? It makes the comparison side to side a little bit easier as well. So we're going back to the left now. Take your time, good, and back to the right. All right, because there's a tendency for us to cheat this a little bit by moving our arms, moving our shoulders. So this keeps it all locked in. All right, so now you've got a sense if you're filming or if you're looking in the mirror, how far you're getting each way. We're going to keep this position, and now we're going to do lateral flexion. So for the lateral flexion, what tends to happen is that people will shrug the shoulder blades, or they'll shift their weight side to side. So you may see how this isn't really moving from my spine. This is more moving, I'm folding sideways at the hip. So what I want you to do is imagine that you're tipping this bar as much as you can, tipping your shoulder towards your hip by bowing outward. So it's like I'm sticking that end out that way and sticking this end this way and down. Okay, so I'm turning here, shoulders are staying low, contracting the left side of my body as much as I can. You're not going to get an enormous amount of movement. You might get more than me, but same thing with the bar. You're keeping all these points of contact under your arms and with your chest. Now we're flexing laterally the other way. All right, and you can keep something in front of and behind you as well to make sure that you're flexing the way that you want to be. So here, as I laterally flex, maybe you'll be able to tell, it's possible that I'm going forward and back as well. I'm not really sure, but I'll check the tape. Okay? So I just want you to go side to side, get a feel for how that feels in your body, and then also how far you're going. Okay? You can relax the arms if you need to, but if you're good to go, then we're going to go into a full spinal car, kneeling. And again, you can do this seated if your feet, knees, or whatever need a little bit of a break. Okay? So for this, we're going to put both of these ranges together along with the flexion and extension. All right? So you're going to round by flexing your spine, rounding as much as you can. We're going to rotate the chest to the left as much as you can. Tip left shoulder towards left hip. Extend back. Extend, extend, extend. And then you're going to start rotating and tipping right shoulder towards the right hip, rotate your chest to the right, and then round back to the center and up tall. All right, now we're gonna go the same thing the other way. Round your spine as much as you can, rotate as far as you can to the right, keeping these points of contact with the bar, tip the right shoulder towards the right hip, as much lateral flexion as you can get, extend back as you start rotating, good, and then you're going to tip left shoulder towards left hip, rotate, dropping that elbow to the left, round back to the center, and up tall. All right, so now that's the full spinal car. So we have a feel for how that is looking now, hopefully, and how it's feeling. Spoiler alert, especially if you're using a bar here, you're not gonna get a ton of range of motion, but that's fine, because we don't want it coming from the hips. It's coming mostly from here up, which is what we want. All right, so we've got an assessment now, and hopefully you have a feel for where you do and don't move well. And now we're gonna move on to working specifically with the upper and lower back, and then I'll show you some strategies for improving rotation and lateral flexion as well. So we're gonna work especially on the lower back right in this segment here. So if you found that you had trouble flexing or extending the low back, moving through the low back, this is gonna help you out a little bit. And I recommend all of this regardless of how your spine moves, but especially if you have issues here in the low back. So what we're gonna do is round the upper back. So you're gonna tuck your chin, round down, bring your head down, and hands come back here on top of your shoulders. So by rounding my upper back, I'm minimizing the movement of my thoracic spine. From this position, I'm going to try to move my low back as much as I can. Okay, so I'm extending and flexing. If you can't think about moving it, see if you can tuck and untuck your pelvis to get a little bit of movement there. All right, so even if you don't know, even if you can't really tell what's going on, that is your intent. And your intent, even if there isn't movement going on, is still going to help. You're still creating a neural drive there, and you're helping to map that area out in your mind. All right, now, you can give a little bit of feedback to help. So if you have a partner, that's perfect, but I'll show you how you can do it on your own. So if you're in this position, okay, you can bring it back as long as it's comfortable. This helps me a lot. I bring my thumb right down in between my vertebrae, and I think about pinching my thumb by drooping down and pinching the vertebrae together, or pulling them together, then spreading them apart so I can feel a stretch. Pinching together, spreading apart. So that's gonna help me work at a specific segment. So if I find, boom, I notice very little movement right here, awesome. I can work on that very specifically by pressing my thumb in there and just facilitating a little bit of extra movement. Then I can move down a little bit if I need to. All right, see if I can move from that segment. And my goal here is to move mostly from the segment my finger is on. Okay, so I'm focusing movement at that one segment. Then I can also move up. Okay, if this is uncomfortable or awkward, or you just don't like it, that's fine. All right, you can use a strap or a band. All right, so I'll show you how to do that. So what I do with this simple, just elastic strap or elastic band, I put it under my knee like this, so I have a little bit of tension, and you can increase that tension a little bit if you need to. All right, then from here, get into position, okay, just like that, and then I've got a little bit of pressure where the band is. So from this position, I can basically do the same thing, and then I can adjust it and go, okay, let's work this segment. Oh, I need a little more tension? Cool. I can pull the band, I can get a feel for it, and then I can try to press up into the band with my spine and droop down with my spine. And my goal at that point is to move only where the band is. All right, so we're getting a little more feedback. Now this is pretty subtle work, it's not the most exciting, but this is one of the best ways that you can help your spine move better. So it's all about consistency and patience, all right? It's not gonna fix itself right away. So, really good way to help with the lower back, with the lumbar spine, getting that moving more. Now I'm gonna show you what you can do to focus especially on the upper back. So there's a couple different positions here. One of them is you sit back like this and think about rounding your low back. This will kind of happen if you drop down like this. Now from this position, you can do whatever you want with your arms. You can bring them out here. Think about pressing the shoulders away though again, so you're not moving through there. And then you're just extending and rounding. So just like the first position with the lumbar spine, this is going to be focusing just a little bit more on the upper back. You see, I'm not moving only at the upper back, but this position really limits what's going to happen at the low back. Okay, so from here, I'm rounding. You can even, to minimize the movement at the low back, you could hold something here like this. So if I go here and I'm kind of holding it with my ribs, it's going to force me to really lock in, and I'm really only going to get movement at my upper back from here, for the most part. Now from here, whether you use the block or not, if you want to do something similar that we did with the lower back, awesome, you can use a band. So you can use a band or a strap, anything like that, and you can pick a segment. Especially, you may notice that you have a block in like the mid upper back or high upper back, wherever it might be. Put the band there, and then you're going to focus on moving only from that spot. So you're going to focus on rounding and drooping down. Rounding and drooping down. And initially, you really might not feel much, and you might not be able to move that without moving every other part of the spine. And that is absolutely fine. Again, it goes back to patience. Try your best to be patient, be kind to yourself. Okay, when I first started doing this, not only was I unwilling to do this, I hated it. Well, I guess those two go hand in hand. Because I just couldn't, I didn't have that connection. Over time, with a little bit of faith, it came, and it got a little bit better. Still not perfect, so you can work up a little higher if you need to as well. All right? Really the best thing is get a partner who will help you, really pinpoint specific areas. Okay, so remember, this is all based on our assessment in the beginning, where you see your spine moving and then not moving. All right, so there's places you see it not moving, that's where you're really gonna wanna focus. Okay, and if you find that like your upper back moves great, awesome, spend more time in the low back and vice versa. Spend more time and energy and effort in the area that doesn't move quite as well. All right, so now we've got that. This is gonna be your priority. Improving that flexion and extension, especially flexion, the rounding, is where you're gonna get your most bang for the buck. That's gonna improve all the other movements at your spine. So spend a lot of time there, but then you can also work on the lateral flexion and the rotation. So if we're working on improving rotation specifically, we can go back into this position with the bar, okay, against the chest, in the armpits, arms are here, we're crossed. Okay, and you can certainly work in and out of rotation, actively pulling yourself into it. That is going to help. But if you want a little more potent stimulus for that, and assuming your flexion and extension is decent, you can do some Pale's rails. So what you might do is rotate as far as you can, set up a stretch. All right, so remember the Pale's rails, you're going into your stretch position. So I'm here, let's say I'm at my end range rotation. I'm going to drive Pale's contraction this way. So I'm gonna intend to rotate this way, to my left. Ramp up that intensity, then try not to let anything else change. Rotate, rotate, rotate to the right. Good, I can turn my body a little bit more. Relax and repeat. You might get some nasty cramps in your abdomen and your obliques, back. As long as it's not genuine pain, you're okay. Okay, so this is a little bit intense, and again, focus most of your efforts initially on flexion and extension, but if you really want to improve rotation, this is a good way to do it. So I'll run you through it again. You're at your end range, let's say you're at your end range, you're going to drive away, so I'm trying to rotate out of my end range, rotating to the left. I'm ramping up that intensity, just like with other Pale's rails contractions, for about 10 to 15 seconds. Once I get as hard as I'm comfortable with, I'm gonna maintain that intensity for maybe another 5 to 10 seconds, okay? Then, this stays the same. I'm rotating further into the stretch. Rotating, 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 holding as far as I can go, and then I can turn my body so that I'm now resting in my new end range. Okay, so I'd recommend doing maybe 1 to 2 rounds there if you're really keen on improving your rotation for now. Okay, you can certainly do the same thing with the other side. For the lateral flexion, this is going to be a little bit different. So this is a little tough one for the pails rails. You can do a couple things. All right, so here you can work lateral flexion from the kneeling position just like we did before. You can also go in this position, so your spine is here. Lateral flexion would be this way, right? So I'm going to kind of prop myself up. So I'm about at my end range, lateral flexion, and you can put your arm up on something depending on your range of motion. Okay, so here I'm getting that flexion at the spine. And I want to look, so this way, my body, I don't want it to be folded one way or the other. I want to be straight up and down. Okay, so I'm here, hang out here with the stretch, same pails, rails process. All right, make sure you can see me. Okay, now from here, I would drive down, which is a little bit tough. In a way, I'm sort of driving down this way with the intent to drive my body like this into the floor. Okay, same idea. I'm ramping up the intensity. I'm keeping it going. All right, keep ramping. Hold at a high intensity. Then my intent, and because I can't really do it, just from here, I can't just lift my body, I'm gonna assist a little bit with my right arm. So now my intent is to use these tissues to pull, laterally flex my body up, up, up. So I'm pulling with this, trying to flex, flex, flex. I'm using my right arm to help a little bit. Once I get as far as I can, I'm gonna keep pulling for a little longer and then relax in this position. All right, so I'm feeling a stretch through here and I'm using these tissues actively to pull. And then I'm relaxing, and then I can do another round. So I'll just walk you through one more round, okay? So if you really, really want to improve your lateral flexion, this is a good way to do it, okay? So again, find a stretch and film yourself so you can make sure that you're getting this through the spine and not through anything else. All right, I'm gonna try to use these tissues to contract and pull myself down towards the floor. It's a little weird, okay? Pull myself down towards the floor. So I'm trying to use this to pull down. Good, and then that's my pails. My rails is I'm gonna use these tissues to now pull myself and turn, laterally flex more. Of course, I'm not gonna go anywhere, so I'm gonna use my right arm to help a little bit. So I'm pulling with all this, using my right arm to help me flex slightly, pull, and then relax in my new position, okay? To reinforce some of this, since you do need to assist with your right arm, you can then do some holds, or really what end up being eccentric. So I can go up as high as I can, slowly bring myself down, go up as high as I can, slowly bring myself down, just to reinforce that range for lateral flexion. All right, so I know these setups are a little bit awkward, it's a little bit intense. Great way to improve lateral flexion and rotation. But again, the first priority is going to be regular flexion and extension. So the segmental cat-cows, and then doing the blocks where we're focusing specifically on the lumbar and the thoracic spine. Hope you enjoyed this. I hope you developed some good priorities for you. And get ready for session part 2. Yeah, get ready for part 2.